All right, so let's try this again. This is M250V1P2 Part 2. Part 1 came out sideways, and I'm having a really hard time with this phone. It was doing everything fine before, but now it's not really behaving. So this is where we ended last time. We started with this matrix. We used the row reduction algorithm to get it to the reduced echelon form, which looks like this. And then we took it one step further to the reduced row echelon form, which is this. And this is the one we really want. Okay. All right, so let's solve the system. Using all this work. So this first row here says that x1 minus x3 equals -2. The second row says x2 plus 2x3 equals 3. And the third row says that 0 equals 0. Okay, that's great. We knew that from ages ago, right? But if you put these two together, it says that x1 depends on x3 and x2 depends on x3. So we have dependency here. And what we say is that x3 is an independent variable. Or better yet, it's a free variable. We're free to choose it, and that's what independence really means. And once we choose what x3 is, we get a value for x1 and x2. And so this system has, infinitely many solutions based on these dependencies. Okay. And just to give them names, x1, x2, which are, depend on x3, are called basic variables. And once you do the row reduced echelon form of a matrix, it's much easier to find out what the basic variables are and what the free variables are. And again, this is something I didn't really define clearly in Math 215 diffie-q. So if a matrix A is in reduced row echelon form, then variables corresponding to pivot columns, like here and here, the ones with ones and zeros, are basic variables. And the other variables are free. And now this really brings home what the difference between a basic variable and a free variable are. Okay. And so we'll look at one really cool example, and then it'll clean all this up. Okay, so let's say we have some matrix. It's 3 by 6. Okay. And the row reduced echelon form comes out to be 1, 6, 0, 3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, minus 4, 0, 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 7. Okay. All right, so this first column is a pivot column. Right, so it's the first one in the row, and it tells us where the pivot is. There's zeros below it. Go to the second row, you move over to the right here, and you hit this guy, and it's a 1 all by itself. There's a 0 above and 0 below, so that's the second pivot column. Okay, and then you go to the third row, you move to the right. Here, boom, there's the third pivot column. So what this says is that x1, x3, and x5 are basic variables. Okay. Therefore, x2 and x4 are free variables. Because they correspond to the columns that are not pivot columns and in this row reduced echelon form. Okay. So let's look at row 1 here. Row 1 says x1 plus 6x2 plus 3x4 equals 0. Right? Well, x2 and x4 are free variables, so this one says that x1 is minus 6x2 minus 3x4. And there's a dependency, right? You choose x2 and x4, put it into this equation, and you figure out what x1 is. Okay. Row 2 says x3 minus 4x4 equals 5. And that says that x3, which is one of the basic variables, equals 4x4 plus 5. All right, and again, x3 depends on the choice of x4. And then row 3 says x5 equals 7. And that's just a constant, right? So in this solution, 1, 3, and 5 are basic variables, and you choose x2 and x4, and you'll get infinitely many solutions of this form. All right. Man, I hope this video works. It's taken me 5 hours to put this together. Okay. So here's what we have so far. Homework 1 is due Monday, 8:31 on Brightspace. Whenever class starts, I think it's 1400. Somewhere around there. The problems are out of Lay's book. Section 1.1, 11 and 14, you have to do some work by hand, check it with a computer, and then 25, 1.2, 7, 12, and 20, all by hand. And then section 1, 3, 11, 14, 22, and 26. There might be more added after Wednesday's video, but that remains to be seen. And then on Friday, we'll have a Zoom conversation about these problems. Have a great weekend.